Krit had always been the one who stayed, that was his curse, or his gift, depending on how you looked at it. He was the steady hand, the warm shoulder, the patient smile. People leaned on him without asking permission, and Krit let them because somewhere deep inside, he believed that being needed was the same as being loved. He was 32 when Arun walked into his life. The Chiang Mai night market was crowded that evening, steam rising from noodle carts and the air thick with jasmine and lemongrass. Krit had been buying mango sticky rice, his one indulgence after long shifts at the clinic, when he noticed the man standing alone near the temple wall, Arun. Even then, Krit noticed how beautiful he was. Soft edges, tired eyes that still held kindness, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile without permission. Krit approached the way he approached everything, gently. "You look like you're searching for something," he said, holding out the second container of sticky rice. "I've been told I'm good at helping people find things." Arun looked up, startled, then let out a small laugh. That obvious, only to someone who knows how to look, that was the beginning. For 8 months, Krit built a home around Arun without either of them noticing. He learned the small things first. Arun took his coffee black with 1 sugar, but only if the beans were Arabica. He fell asleep to the sound of rain. Krit had a playlist for that. He traced circles on his own wrist when he was anxious, a habit he didn't know he had until Krit gently covered his hand one evening and said, "I'm here." They fit together like stones worn smooth by the same river. Krit never rushed. He held doors open, asked permission before every touch. When they kissed for the first time, soft, almost reverent, Krit kept his hands at Arun's waist, thumbs pressing gentle circles through the fabric of his shirt. He wanted Arun to feel cherished. I could love him, Krit thought. I already do, but love, he would learn, was not the same as being loved back. The cracks appeared slowly. A text unanswered for hours. Arun's gaze drifting to his phone, then away, a flush creeping up his neck. The way he'd pull back from Krit's touch sometimes, not rejecting it, but distracted, like his body was here but his heart had already started walking towards somewhere else. Krit noticed everything. He always did. "You've been quiet," Krit said one night. Arun's chopsticks hovered over his noodles, frozen mid-air. "Have I?" "Yes." Krit set down his own chopsticks. "You want to tell me about it?" Arun's throat moved as he swallowed. "Krit, have you ever felt like you were standing in the wrong room?" Krit's chest tightened, but his voice stayed soft. "Every day. But I also know that sometimes the wrong room becomes home if you stay long enough to learn its walls." Arun looked at him then, really looked, and Krit saw something break behind his eyes. "That's the thing," Arun whispered. "I don't think I've been staying. I think I've been hiding." It happened on a Sunday. The rain was heavy, the kind that made Chiang Mai feel like it was washing itself clean. Krit had made tea, jasmine, Arun's favorite, and they sat on the balcony, watching water cascade off the temple roofs. Krit knew. He had known for weeks. The distance in Arun's voice, the guilt in his silences, the way he said Krit's name like an apology. "You met someone," Krit said. Not a question. Arun's hands trembled around his mug. "Krit, you don't have to explain." Krit turned to face him, legs crossed, posture open. "I just need to know if you're happy." Arun's composure cracked. Tears spilled over. "I didn't want this. I didn't look for this. He walked into my life and suddenly everything I thought I wanted felt like a story I was telling myself." A man, then. Krit felt a strange relief. At least Arun had found someone who could love him the way Krit had tried to. "What's his name?" "Faye." Krit nodded slowly. "Does he make you feel seen?" Arun's breath hitched. "Yes." "Does he listen when you speak?" "Yes." "Does he hold you like he's afraid you'll disappear?" Arun closed his eyes. "Yes." Krit smiled. "It hurt, gods, it hurt, but it was real." "Then I'm glad. I wanted to be those things for you, Arun. But love isn't about what we want to give. It's about what someone is willing to receive." Arun reached for him. But Krit gently caught his hands and held them. "Don't apologize," Krit said. "Just, don't forget me. Okay? I was real. What I felt was real." Arun nodded, tears streaming. You were the safest choice I ever made. Krit pressed a final kiss to Arun's forehead, soft, lingering. Then I hope your next choice makes you feel safe and alive. He let go first, he always did. For 3 weeks, Krit disappeared, not physically. He still went to the clinic, still bought mango sticky rice, still fed the stray cats behind his apartment. But the parts of him that had been open, that had believed in soft beginnings, curled inward like flowers closing against a storm. His friends noticed. What happened to you? Asked Ple, his oldest friend. She had watched him fall in and out of love more times than either of them could count. But this was different. This time, Krit wasn't sad, he was hollow. I gave everything to someone who needed me to be safe, Krit said, staring at the city lights. And it still wasn't enough. Ple was quiet for a long moment. Then she said. Maybe you weren't the problem, Krit. Maybe you were just the wrong key for a lock that didn't know what it wanted. Krit laughed bitterly. That's supposed to make me feel better, no? Ple reached over and squeezed his hand. But it's true. And you deserve someone who doesn't need to be convinced to stay. His name was Win. Krit met him exactly 1 month after Arun left. He had stopped believing in fate. Fate, he decided, was just what people called coincidence when they wanted it to mean something. But standing in the middle of a flooded bookstore basement, ankle deep in water, holding a box of rescued novels above his head while a stranger laughed beside him, he started to wonder. The monsoon had been brutal that year. Krit had volunteered to help salvage the old bookstore on Niman Road, a place he loved, full of second-hand paperbacks and the smell of aging paper. He had been stacking sandbags when the back wall gave way, and suddenly he was wading through murky water, grabbing anything he could carry. You're going to hurt your back, said a voice behind him. Let me help. Krit turned. Win was not beautiful in the way Arun had been, soft and approachable. He was beautiful in the way a storm was beautiful, electric, unpredictable, impossible to look away from. His dark hair was plastered to his face, his white t-shirt soaked through and clinging to the lean muscles of his chest and arms. He was holding 3 books under his chin while trying to pull a 4th from a submerged shelf. I'm fine, Krit said. You're lying, Win replied, not unkindly. His voice was low, with a roughness that sent an unexpected shiver down Krit's spine. But so am I. My back already hurts, Krit laughed, really laughed. The first time in weeks. It surprised him. They spent the next 4 hours hauling books to safety, working in wet silence punctuated by small talk. Win was an architect, he told him. He had moved to Chiang Mai 6 months ago to escape Bangkok and a relationship that had turned him into someone he didn't recognize. Escaping seems to be a theme, Krit said. Win looked at him then, really looked. His eyes were dark and intense, the kind of eyes that made you feel like you were being undressed without anyone touching you. Is that what you're doing? Escaping? Krit thought about it. No, he said finally. I think I'm just standing still. Waiting for something to find me, Win smiled. It was crooked and warm and utterly disarming. Maybe stop waiting, he said. Maybe start walking towards something instead. Win was nothing like Arun. Where Arun had been careful, Win was reckless. Where Arun had needed reassurance, Win demanded honesty. Where Arun had fit into Krit's life like a missing puzzle piece, Win crashed into it like a wave, messy and overwhelming and alive. Their first date was accidental. Krit ran into him at the night market, the same one where he had met Arun, and Win was arguing with a dumpling vendor about whether the pork was fresh enough. Krit intervened, bought them both dumplings, and sat with him on the curb while they ate. I don't need you to rescue me, Win said, wiping chili oil from his chin. His jaw was sharp, his lips full, and Krit found himself staring. I know, Krit said. I wasn't trying to. I just wanted an excuse to sit with you. Win looked at him sideways, suspicious. That's either very charming or very creepy. I haven't decided which. Can it be both? Win laughed, loud and unapologetic, and Krit felt something crack open in his chest. Not painfully. Like a window being pushed open after a long winter. Their second date was intentional. Krit asked him to dinner. A real dinner, with reservations and candles and wine Krit couldn't pronounce. Win showed up in a black silk shirt unbuttoned just enough to show the top of his chest, his hair loose, and spent the first 10 minutes telling him about his ex-boyfriend who had stolen his cat. He took Mango? Krit said, horrified. Who takes someone's cat? A monster, Win said darkly. That's who. Krit reached across the table and took his hand. I'll help you get Mango back. Win stared at him. You don't even know me. I know enough, Krit said. I know you're stubborn and loud and you eat dumplings like you're angry at them. I know you laugh with your whole body and you don't apologize for taking up space. I know you make me feel like maybe standing still wasn't the answer after all. Win's eyes softened. That's a lot of knowing for 2 dates, then give me more dates, Krit said. I want to know everything. Part 7, The Walls Come Down. Love with Win was not gentle, it was loud and messy and terrifying. He challenged Krit in ways Arun never had, pushed him to stop being so careful, so accommodating, so safe. He wanted Krit's anger, his frustration, his messy edges. He didn't want the Krit who smoothed everything over with a patient smile. I don't need you to be steady for me, Win told him one night, 3 months in. They were lying on Krit's apartment floor, a half-finished puzzle between them, the rain pounding against the windows. Win's shirt had ridden up, revealing a strip of tan skin above his jeans, and Krit had to physically stop himself from reaching out to touch it. I don't know how to be anything else, Krit admitted. Yes, you do. Win rolled onto his side, propping his head on his hand. His dark eyes pinned Krit in place. You're scared, Krit. You've been scared your whole life, scared that if you stop being the one who gives, no one will stay. Scared that if you show someone the parts of you that are broken, they'll leave like everyone else did. Krit's throat tightened. That's not, it is, Win said, not unkindly. He reached out and touched Krit's face, his palm warm against Krit's cheek. I see you. Not the version you show the world. You. The one who stayed too long in a relationship that wasn't working because leaving felt like failure. The one who gives and gives because receiving feels like weakness. Krit closed his eyes. No one had ever spoken to him like this. No one had ever seen him like this. I'm terrified, he whispered. Good, Win said. His thumb traced Krit's lower lip, feather-light. Terror means you're alive. Terror means you have something to lose. What if I lose you? Win smiled, that crooked, impossible smile. Then you lose me. But at least you'll have tried. At least you'll have shown up as yourself instead of the person you think I want you to be. Krit kissed him then. It wasn't like his kisses with Arun, soft and careful, measured and polite. It was hungry and desperate and full of all the things he had been holding back for years. Win made a sound against his mouth, low and surprised, and then his hands were in Krit's hair, pulling him closer. They kissed like they were trying to devour each other. Teeth and tongue and breath tangled together. Win's body was warm and solid beneath Krit's hands, and when Krit pressed him back against the floor, Win arched up into him with a moan that went straight to Krit's hips. Slow, Win gasped against his mouth. I want to remember this. Krit pulled back just enough to look at him. Win's lips were swollen, his eyes dark, his chest heaving. He had never looked more beautiful. I'm not going anywhere, Krit said, and for the first time, he believed it, but Win had secrets. Krit started noticing them around the 4th month. The way Win's phone would light up with messages he never answered. The way he'd sometimes stare at nothing, his face going blank and distant. The way he flinched when Krit touched his lower back, not always, but sometimes, when he wasn't expecting it. Who hurt you? Krit asked one night. They were in Win's apartment this time, a minimalist space filled with architectural models and half-empty coffee cups. Win was standing by the window, backlit by the city lights, and he looked like a ghost. Why do you assume someone hurt me? Win asked without turning around. Because I know what it looks like when someone is waiting for the other shoe to drop. Krit crossed the room and stood behind him, close enough to feel Win's heat but not touching. I've been there. I am there. Win was silent for a long moment. Then he said, his name was Pete. Krit waited. We were together for 5 years. Engaged for 1. Win's voice was flat, controlled, like he was reading from a script. He was beautiful and charming and everyone loved him. Including me. Especially me. What happened? Win finally turned. His eyes were dry, but his hands were shaking. I came home early one day. Found him in our bed with someone else. And when I tried to leave, Win stopped. Swallowed. He told me no one else would ever want me. That I was too much. Too intense. Too broken. Krit felt something hot and protective rise in his chest. He was wrong, was he? Win laughed bitterly. Look at you. You're the kindest person I've ever met, and even you almost walked away because I was too much. I never walked away. You thought about it. Krit couldn't deny that. There had been moments, nights when Win's walls went up and nothing Krit did could bring them down, when he had wondered if this was just another version of the same story. Another person who would eventually decide he wasn't enough. I'm still here, Krit said quietly. For now. Krit reached out and took Win's face in both hands, forcing him to meet his eyes. I'm not Pete. I'm not Arun. I'm not anyone who came before. I'm just Krit. And I'm choosing you. Every day. Even the hard days. Especially the hard days. Win's composure cracked. A single tear slipped down his cheek, and Krit caught it with his thumb. Why? Win whispered. Why would you choose someone like me? Because you're the first person who ever asked me to be real, Krit said. Because you see me. Because you make me want to stop being safe and start being brave. Win kissed him then, desperate and trembling, his fingers fisting in Krit's shirt. They stumbled toward the bedroom, shedding clothes along the way, and when Krit finally laid Win out on the bed, he took his time. He kissed every scar, the visible ones and the ones only Win could feel. He mapped Win's body with his hands and his mouth, learning the places that made him gasp, the places that made him shake, the places that made him cry out Krit's name like a prayer, and when they finally came together, it wasn't gentle. It was raw and honest and exactly what both of them needed. Afterward, tangled together in the dark, Win pressed his face into Krit's neck and whispered, I think I'm falling in love with you. Krit held him tighter. I think I've already fallen. Part 9, The Breaking Point. 3 weeks later, Pete came back. Krit didn't know at first. He just noticed that Win started pulling away again, canceling plans, staring at his phone, jumping every time it buzzed. The old fear crept back into Krit's chest, whispering that this was it, this was the end. He had finally become too much, but Krit had learned something since Arun. Instead of waiting to be left, he asked, tell me what's going on, he said one evening. They were at Krit's apartment, and Win had been quiet all night, barely touching his food. Nothing, Win. Krit set down his chopsticks. I've spent my whole life accepting nothing from people who meant everything. I can't do that anymore. Not with you. Win looked up, and Krit saw guilt in his eyes. Real, heavy guilt. Pete contacted me, Win said finally. He wants to get back together. The words hit Krit like a physical blow. He kept his face neutral, but inside, something was cracking. And what did you tell him? I told him no. Win reached across the table and grabbed Krit's hand. I told him no, Krit. I swear. Then why are you pulling away? Win's jaw tightened. Because he said something. Something I can't stop thinking about. Krit waited. He said you were just using me. That someone like you, kind, stable, safe, would never really want someone like me. That you were just trying to fix me, and once you realized I couldn't be fixed, you'd leave. Krit pulled his hand away. Win's face crumpled. See? Win said, his voice breaking. You're all ready, stop. Krit stood up, then knelt in front of Win's chair so they were eye to eye. I'm not leaving. I'm pulling away so I don't say something I'll regret. Because right now, I'm angry, at me, at Pete. At you for believing him. At myself for not making you feel secure enough to know he's wrong. Win stared at him. You're not angry at me, no. Krit took a deep breath. I'm angry that someone convinced you that you're unlovable. I'm angry that you've been carrying that lie for so long that it feels like the truth. And I'm angry that I didn't notice sooner. Win's eyes filled with tears. Krit, I don't want to fix you, Krit said, his voice fierce. You're not broken. You're hurt. There's a difference. And I don't want to be your savior. I want to be your partner. Your equal. The person who holds your hand while you do the hard work of healing yourself. Win slid off the chair and into Krit's arms, sobbing against his shoulder. Krit held him, rocking gently, and let him cry. When the tears finally stopped, Win pulled back just enough to look at him. His face was blotchy and swollen, his nose running, and he had never been more beautiful. I love you, Win said. I love you so much it terrifies me. Krit smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. Good. Terror means you're alive, Win laughed wetly. Did you just use my own line against me? Absolutely, Win kissed him, soft and sweet and full of promise. And when they finally pulled apart, Krit pressed their foreheads together and whispered, block his number, I already did. Good. Krit kissed the corner of his mouth. Now let me make you dinner. Real dinner. And then we're going to talk about everything, the hard stuff, the ugly stuff, all of it. And then we're going to bed, and in the morning, we're going to figure out how to get Mango back from that monster. Win laughed again, brighter this time. You remember about Mango? I remember everything about you, Krit said. Every single thing. 1 year later, Krit stood in the same Chiang Mai night market where he had met Arun, but everything was different. Win was beside him, holding his hand, complaining loudly about the price of mango sticky rice. His hair was longer now, curling at the nape of his neck. And he wore a silver ring on his left hand that matched the one on Krit's. I can't believe you're making me pay for this, Win grumbled, but he was smiling. You ate half of mine last time, Krit said. This is called boundaries. Since when do you have boundaries? Since I started dating a therapist, Win snorted. I'm an architect, you're my architect, Krit said, tugging him closer. You built something in me I didn't know was missing. Win's expression softened. That's disgustingly romantic. You love it, I love you. Win pressed a quick kiss to his cheek, then pulled away to pay the vendor. When he came back, sticky rice in hand, he looked at Krit with an expression that made Krit's heart ache. What? Krit asked. I was just thinking, Win said. About that day in the bookstore. When you were standing in the water like an idiot, holding those books over your head. I was rescuing them. You were drowning, Win corrected. And I thought, that's the most beautiful man I've ever seen. I hope he lets me save him. Krit's throat tightened. I didn't need saving, no, Win agreed. You needed someone to stand in the water with you. To get wet and cold and miserable and remind you that you weren't alone. They stood there in the crowded market, surrounded by noise and light and the smell of fried food, and Krit felt something he hadn't felt in years, peace, not the quiet, fragile peace he had known with Arun, the peace of tiptoeing around someone else's feelings, of making himself smaller so they could feel safe. This was different. This was the peace of being fully seen and fully chosen. The peace of knowing that the person beside him wasn't there because Krit was convenient or safe or easy. Win was there because he wanted to be, and Krit finally believed he deserved to be wanted. I love you, Krit said, loud enough for the whole market to hear. Win's eyes went wide. Krit, I love you, Krit said again. And I'm not going to stop saying it. Not ever. Win pulled him into a kiss, deep and unashamed, right there in front of everyone. When they finally broke apart, people were clapping and whistling, and Win was laughing, his face flushed and happy. Idiot, Win said fondly. You're idiot, Krit replied, and for the first time in his life, Krit wasn't the one who stayed, he was the one who was chosen. They got married on a Sunday, in a small garden behind the bookstore where they had met. Win wore a black suit with no tie, his cross tattoo visible at his collar. Krit wore white, simple and elegant, with a single jasmine flower tucked into his lapel. Ple officiated, crying before she even said the first word. Arun wasn't there. Krit had received a polite card instead, a quiet acknowledgement of what had been and what could never be again. Krit kept the card in a drawer, not out of longing, but out of gratitude. Arun had taught him what he didn't want. Win had taught him what he deserved. When they kissed, soft and certain and full of joy, the rain that had been threatening all morning finally began to fall. Neither of them moved. Should we go inside? Win asked against his lips. Absolutely not, Krit said. I've been waiting my whole life for this. A little rain won't stop me, Win laughed, loud and unapologetic, and pulled him closer. They stood in the rain, holding each other, while their friends cheered and the world kept turning, and Krit, who had spent so long being safe for everyone else, finally allowed himself to be happy, not safe, happy.